At this point, we all know how Cyberpunk 2077 has become the ultimate comeback story in gaming. The same game that once turned Keanu Reeves into a meme is now sitting comfortably among the greats. 30 million copies sold, award-winning DLC, redemption arc now complete. CD Projekt Red basically pulled a from zero to hero montage straight out of an 80s movie. But when a studio climbs that high, there's usually one terrifying question waiting at the top. Can they do it again without screwing it up? And for the Cyberpunk sequel, that question just got a whole lot louder. Only this time, it's not about bugs, delays, or graphics. It's about the one word that could either elevate or destroy everything CDPR rebuilt: multiplayer. The thing some fans have been begging for might just be the thing that could ruin it. So today, we're diving deep into how CD Projekt Red is quietly turning Cyberpunk into something new. But if CDPR's not careful, they might trade their signature immersion for microtransactions. And that would be the real dystopia.
Let's quickly rewind for a second, back to 2020, when the word Cyberpunk didn't mean redemption quite yet. It meant refunds. Players were clipping through walls, cars were blasting into orbit, and NPCs had all the emotional range of a toaster. It was a disaster. A shiny, neon disaster. But then, CD Projekt Red did the unthinkable. They didn't walk away. They fixed it. Patch by patch, they rebuilt Night City from the ground up. They rolled out performance updates, free content drops, and of course, Phantom Liberty. That DLC was the equivalent of a phoenix rising from the ashes. Or, maybe more accurately, Keanu Reeves rising from a flaming Porsche. By the end of 2023, Cyberpunk had sold over 30 million copies. The reviews flipped. The memes turned into praise. Critics who once mocked it started calling it one of the best open-world RPGs ever made. CDPR regained its respect and became the comeback story of modern gaming. And just when it felt like they'd finally nailed it, CD Projekt Red announced the next step. Codename Project Orion. The sequel. A whole new city. A promise of lessons learned and ambition doubled. Early reports and rumors suggest it's set in Chicago, running on Unreal Engine 5 and built by a new North American studio collaborating with CDPR's main team in Poland. That announcement lit up the internet like a neon sign in Watson. It was a second chance. A clean slate. The game that could finally deliver on every dream the first one couldn't. But here's where that excitement starts to twist, because the same studio that spent years rebuilding trust might now be walking a razor's edge. The question isn't, can CDPR make another masterpiece? It's, can they resist the temptation to change what made it one? And that temptation? Oh, it's a big one. Because CD Projekt Red isn't just building a sequel anymore. They're building a connected, multiplayer world. And as history's shown us, that's how some of the best single-player studios lose their soul. So here's where things start to get a bit dicey for me. A little while back, CDPR quietly started posting job listings. Network engineers, gameplay designers, server architects, all focused on building high-performance online systems. They're essentially saying, we're making multiplayer, and we want it to work this time. On paper, that potential could be pretty awesome. Imagine roaming Night City with friends, hacking corpos, ambushing convoy trucks, customizing rides together, maybe even fighting other mercs in neon-lit street battles. Sounds great, right? But here's where the warning lights start flashing. Multiplayer is more than just a feature. It can be a philosophical change to how a game is designed from the ground up. When you make a single-player RPG, your focus is on immersion, on how every quest, choice, and moment feels tailored to you, the player. When you go multiplayer, that focus shifts towards systems. Matchmaking, balance, progression loops, anti-cheat mechanics. It suddenly becomes less about telling a personal story, and more about managing a shared one. Cyberpunk's magic was about walking through neon rain with a pistol you probably stole, hearing Panam's voice over a phone call, getting lost in a story that somehow felt like yours. How do you translate that into an online lobby full of other players, bunny hopping through the streets with gamer tags floating above their heads? And obviously CDPR knows this.
They've spent years crafting games that feel deeply personal. The Witcher 3 made you care about Geralt without needing an online leaderboard. But the moment you add other players into that world, things change. Dialogue pacing, quest triggers, even enemy scaling, everything that made the first Cyberpunk immersive, the solitude, the slow discovery, the feeling that Night City was watching you, starts to fade the second someone else logs in and starts pointlessly shooting vending machines. Of course, multiplayer can still work in narrative games. GTA Online and Destiny 2 prove that. But look how much of those experiences often revolve around grind and monetization rather than storytelling. That's what fans are worried about. Not just whether it'll function technically, but whether CDPR's soul survives the transition. Every studio that tries to go online starts with good intentions. Then comes the cosmetic store, then the battle pass, then the premium gig contracts. And before long, you're staring at a futuristic menu with a buy cybercoins option tucked next to your inventory. At this point, Cyberpunk needs to stay an immersive world instead of becoming another service. The thing is, some studios have managed to bridge that gap, offering multiplayer without sacrificing the story, and one of them just might hold the key to saving Cyberpunk 2 from itself. Single-player and multiplayer gamers live in completely different universes. One side wants immersion, emotional storytelling, and the freedom to pause mid-quest because their pizza just arrived. The other side wants progression systems, loot drops, and the chance to teabag a stranger after a hard-fought victory. They both love games, they just love different things about them. And history has shown us what happens when studios try to mash those two worlds together. It's kinda like mixing oil and water, or worse, Bethesda and online servers. Take Skyrim for example. 1,000 hours of dragons, exploration, and the sacred art of stealing every single cheese wheel in Whiterun. That game gave players nearly infinite ways to make the world feel personal. Then Elder Scrolls Online came along. Suddenly, you weren't the chosen one anymore. You were adventurer number 4,268 in queue. You'd go to talk to a quest giver, and there'd be a line of 50 people waiting to talk to the same NPC, all jumping in place like caffeinated rabbits. The immersion died before you even accepted the quest. Then there's Red Dead Redemption 2 versus Red Dead Online. One is an incredibly immersive western about loyalty, morality, and watching the sunset over a doomed era. The other is a chaotic circus where everyone's running around griefing strangers for fun. And don't even get me started on Fallout 76. I loved Fallout 4. I spent hours looting, building, and quietly role-playing as the Wasteland's most polite murderer. But in 76, it wasn't radiation that ruined the atmosphere. It was other players nuking my camp every 5 minutes. I didn't need that kind of multiplayer realism. These games prove a point. When you blend two incompatible audiences, one of them always walks away disappointed. Single-player fans feel rushed, distracted, or disconnected. Multiplayer fans feel restrained, slowed down, or bored by the story beats. No matter how good your intentions are, the result is a constant tug-of-war between solitude and chaos. And that's the crossroads where Cyberpunk 2 is standing right now. Does CDPR build for the dreamers who want to lose themselves in a digital city, or for the online grinders who want to live there with friends? Because those goals pull in opposite directions. But what if, somehow, there was a middle ground? A way for Cyberpunk 2 to stay immersive and be multiplayer, without turning Night City into a neon Fortnite? Well, turns out, someone might have already cracked that code. And the answer doesn't come from CD Projekt Red. It comes from Techland. When Techland released Dying Light the Beast, they basically said, hey, what if single-player immersion and co-op chaos could actually coexist? And somehow, it worked. Now, on the surface, the Beast looks like your typical open-world action RPG. Parkour, combat, exploration, the usual zombie-slaying workout. But under the hood, it's a masterclass in balance. It lets you play completely solo if you want that classic immersive experience. The story unfolds naturally, characters respond only to your actions, and the pacing feels deliberate and cinematic. You can take your time, explore the city, get lost in the narrative, all without some random player jumping across rooftops in clown shoes beside you. But here's where Techland flexed their genius. Multiplayer was added in a way that doesn't mess with the soul of the game. When you go online, the host's world becomes the anchor. You can jump into your friend's campaign, play missions together, and even experience the same story beats. But everything you earn, every weapon, every skill point, still belongs to you. Your choices carry over to your own world when you go back offline. If your friend starts a cutscene, you can't skip it, override it, or talk over it. You're watching their story unfold together. That's what makes it work. Respect. The system respects the narrative, the player, and the pacing. Imagine that in the Cyberpunk sequel. You and a friend jack into Night City together. Maybe you help each other on gigs, trade loot, or sync up on co-op missions, but your version of the world stays intact. Your endings, your relationships, your story, all still yours. No one interrupts your dialogue choices, no leaderboard telling you your rank, just the option to share the ride, not compete in it. That's the model CD Projekt Red should be studying like it's a sacred relic, because instead of splitting the player base, Dying Light the Beast united them. Solo fans got their immersion, multiplayer fans got their online chaos, and neither side felt cheated. That's the sweet spot Cyberpunk 2 needs to hit. A design that says, hey, you can share the story if you want, but you don't have to. A system where multiplayer is optional. Because let's be honest, not every player wants to turn Night City into a shared server full of gunfights and pop-up notifications. Some of us just want to sit in our apartment, listen to a radio broadcast, and stare out at the neon skyline for a minute. That quiet moment of immersion, that's what Cyberpunk is really about. Let's be real. If game studios were people, multiplayer would be their get-rich-quick scheme. Because while single-player games earn love and awards, multiplayer earns recurring revenue. That's apparently the golden phrase every publisher dreams about. Player retention. You've seen it happen before. One day you're slaying dragons or exploring vaults. The next day you're standing in a futuristic lobby wearing a glowing jacket you paid $9.99 for. Because limited time cosmetic. In essence, that's the multiplayer economy. Fun meets FOMO. When Bethesda launched Fallout 76, it wasn't because fans were demanding multiplayer wastelands. It was because executives saw what GTA Online and Fortnite were pulling in. Billions in microtransactions, from gun skins to emotes to battle passes of mild regret. Meanwhile, Elder Scrolls 6 got pushed aside like, yeah, we'll get to you, right after the next Fallout first subscription cycle. And when I see all of that happening, that's what makes me worried for the Cyberpunk sequel. If CD Projekt Red chases that model too hard, they risk turning Night City, a place that once felt alive and personal, into just another storefront with neon ads for in-game currency. Online games aren't inherently evil, but they demand constant feeding. Servers, updates, events, limited-time missions. Suddenly, developers spend more time managing calendars than crafting thoughtful quests. Building a world that feels real instead of one that stays profitable. And that's the heartbreak, isn't it? CD Projekt Red isn't some faceless corporation. They were the underdogs, the studio that said, we're going to make art because that's our passion. They built The Witcher 3 for the players. So when you hear the words Cyberpunk 2 online multiplayer, it's hard not to flinch. But it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Multiplayer can add depth if it's done with care. Shared heists, co-op gigs, optional group missions that enhance the world instead of fragmenting it, it's all about the intention. If the motivation is creativity, awesome. If the motivation is cash flow, well, we've seen how that ends. For the longest time, CDPR felt like the last honest studio standing. They were the ones who made games that respected your time. No predatory DLC schemes, no battle passes, no pay $5 to change your haircut nonsense. When everyone else was chasing trends, CDPR doubled down on storytelling. Instead of chasing whales, they were chasing immersive worlds. The Witcher 3 was a love letter to players who wanted to feel something. You didn't log in for rewards or rankings, you logged in to see how your choices shaped Geralt's fate. Same with Cyberpunk 2077. Even with all its launch woes and chaos, it was a story about identity, legacy, and freedom in a world that sold all three to the highest bidder. That's what made it special, that raw human heartbeat beneath all the chrome and corruption. And that's what's at stake here. If CDPR leans too hard into multiplayer systems, if they build the Cyberpunk sequel like it's meant to be streamed instead of lived, then the very thing that made them unique disappears. They stop being the storytellers we trusted, and start becoming just another corporation in the same machine they used to criticize. Fans don't just want Cyberpunk 2 to exist. We want it to mean something. We want it to make us feel small and powerful all at once. To stand on a balcony overlooking a city that feels too big to understand and think, damn, I'm part of this world. It's kinda hard to patch that feeling into a multiplayer lobby. And it's not that CDPR shouldn't evolve, they absolutely should. But evolution doesn't have to mean abandoning what worked. They can innovate without erasing themselves. If multiplayer becomes a tool for connection, not competition, it has the potential to elevate their storytelling. Imagine co-op gigs where two mercs see the same mission from different moral angles. Imagine player choices that ripple across parallel worlds, not shared servers. That's how CDPR could make multiplayer feel like Cyberpunk, not Apex Legends Night City Edition. At the end of the day, it's more about the identity, not the gameplay modes. CD Projekt Red built its name on authenticity, and players notice when that changes. We've seen it happen with studios that used to be fan darlings. BioWare, Bethesda, even Rockstar. They didn't fall because they made bad games. They fell because they stopped making games for us, the players. Project Orion isn't just another sequel, it's the moment they prove whether all those lessons, all those scars, actually meant something. We already know a few things. The game's being built on Unreal Engine 5, which means better stability, faster development, and way fewer launch bugs and mishaps, hopefully. The story's rumored to move beyond Night City, possibly to Chicago, a colder, more corporate dystopia where the American dream's long dead and the neon lights can't hide the rot. It sounds incredible on paper, but great tech and settings only matter if they remember what made Cyberpunk more than a game, its heart. The one thing that could ruin Cyberpunk 2 isn't multiplayer itself, it's forcing multiplayer where it doesn't belong. If CDPR uses online play to expand immersion, to make the city feel even more alive, then yes, bring it on. Can CDPR pull that off? If they can create a world that connects players without sacrificing the personal experience, then Cyberpunk 2 could do more than just redeem the franchise. It could redefine what RPGs are capable of. So here's hoping CDPR remembers what made us fall in love with this world in the first place. Not the graphics, not the guns, not the bugs, but the feeling of being a ghost in the machine, carving our story into the city one bad decision at a time. That's what Cyberpunk is all about, living fast, dying free, and hoping the devs don't sell chrome armor in the next update. Thanks for watching, that's it for this one, and hey, if you're as hyped and also kinda worried as I am for Cyberpunk 2, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's talk about it in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.